Advocacy often sounds like something reserved for lobbyists, attorneys, or executives in Washington, D.C., but the reality is much different. In today's restoration industry, every contractor, owner, estimator, and team leader has an opportunity to help shape the policies that impact insurance claims, workforce issues, environmental regulations, licensing, and the future of the profession itself. In line with that, a major milestone in 2025 was the launch of the Restoration Industry Association's Voter Voice platform and Advocacy Action Hub, giving restoration professionals a direct line to lawmakers and decision makers. Now, what all this means to you and how you will benefit is in this episode of RIA Beyond. And it's my pleasure to welcome Adam Campbell with Voter Voice and Christy Reeves with BioTeam AZ. It's a pleasure to have you both on the program.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. A pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. Great topic to get into today, but before we jump in, let's get to know you both a little bit. Christy, tell us about yourself and your company.
My name is Christy Reeves. I am one of the owners with my husband, Matthew McFarlane, of BioTeam AZ and BioTeam OR in Oregon. I sit as the chair on the RIA Legislative Committee. I also sit as the trauma crime scene expert on the IICRC S540 committee, and I'm also involved in the IICRC S900 illicit drug committee. We're very involved in organizations here.
And Adam, tell us about yourself and your company as well, your organization.
My name is Adam Campbell. I am the team lead for the client success managers at Fiscal Note. I have been on the Voter Voice team for 13 years, helping groups around the country get their members to advocate on behalf or in opposition to various bills on the association's behalf. And I run all scale advocacy education efforts for Fiscal Note, which is the world's leading legislative intelligence platform.
Thank you, Adam. It'll be good to get to know you a little bit and what you do and how that fits in with RIA's vision and goals. So thank you for all the work you're doing. If you're ready, I have a few questions for you. I'd love to hear your input on this topic. And Christy, we'll start with you. So for restoration professionals who hear the word advocacy and immediately think, that's not for me, how do you explain why every restorer should care about what's happening in the legislative world?
Well, I think it's very simple. We are all in this together. Every single one of us throughout the United States. We are one restoration community. We need a voice when decisions are being made that could often impact employees, businesses, customers. Too often laws and regulations are considered without emergency restoration services providers at the table. We don't get a voice at the table a lot of the times, and we need a voice at the table, which is what we are trying to do with the RIA. When that happens, we can create real and provide real challenges and real opportunities for the people actually doing the work to be heard and explain that to the legislators. Advocacy gives restorers the opportunity to really shape the future of our industry rather than just simply reacting to decisions that policymakers are making on our behalf. If we engage together, we can discuss what we want the future to look like. We can educate the policymakers, especially for companies that are like myself. I own a company, and we can give them real life information. And we can all speak from the same playbook because What affects water companies affects fire companies, it affects biohazard remediation companies. And I believe every restorer should really care about this. And they should do this because legislation can directly impact how we operate in every city, state, county, community, how we get paid, how our business operates, how we serve our customers, how it impacts our customers. We know better how it impacts our customers than the legislators do. And especially how we protect our businesses, especially the small businesses in the community. And I believe advocacy is not about politics. It's about protecting our industry.
Thank you, Christy. You said we are one restoration community. I'm hearing that more and more all the time. So, and we're seeing action come to back that up, which is nice to see. Adam, did you have anything to add to this question before we get into the next one?
Well, certainly Christy's answer was wonderful. I especially liked what she said about being one restoration industry and being very interconnected. I would add to that there is a very real concern that states use other state regulations and legislation as a basis for their own reasoning. And if you have ever been in a position where you thought like you were wasting time and money jumping through unnecessary hoops put in place by people who didn't understand what was and was not actually important or pertinent to the issue at hand, then it's also worth being a little worried that someone in the next state over did that, and now your legislators are going to get a great idea. So it is very important to protect your industry as a whole. And by getting above the idea of partisan politics, like this is not a left versus right issue. These are about helping the populace. These are about cutting out unnecessary red tape so that the entire industry is protected and the populace is, well, also protected in their own right.
I think most would vote yes to cutting out the red tape, but we'll just see how that goes in the future. So, Adam, let's stick with you on this one. Now, the launch of RIA's Voter Voice platform and Advocacy Action Hub was a major step forward. Tell us, what exactly does the platform do, and how simple is it for members to get involved?
So the answer of what Voter Voice does can be pretty large, but the real nugget is that we specialize in grassroots advocacy. So that's not lobbying. That's not grass tops where you're just trying to get VIPs to reach out to people they know personally, but rather getting the people, getting the actual restorers that have boots on the ground to connect with their legislators and say, hey, this bill in California is great for these reasons. However, this reason, this particular thing is poorly thought out and would be improved by X. By reaching out en masse and sending timely, informative, specific messages, you can really have an enormously outpaced or outsized impact compared to signing petitions, posting videos or liking that Facebook article. Those things that don't have a lot of direct contact or connection, they're great for public awareness, but the legislators aren't really looking at public awareness to make a lot of decisions. They need to hear from the people who actually are in the know. And the fact of the matter is, there's not a whole lot of people in Congress or in any state level legislature that have a restoration background, that actually do know what they're talking about when these bills come up. And just like with, asking your cousin, the nurse, whether you should go to the doctor because of these symptoms, they need to hear from people who know better than they do, politely and effectively. It's extremely easy to get involved as an advocate through the Voter Voice platform. For the most part, the RIA is just going to send you an email if you opt in, perhaps a text message saying what's going on. Hey, there is a bill in your area. Here's the reasons it's good for you or bad for you. And we would love for you to contact your legislator. That's going to have a button that will link you to what we call an advocacy campaign. You'll see which legislators you match to. You'll see usually a prepared form message. Now you can take action as simply as clicking send, sending out a form message. You're in and out inside of 15, 20 seconds. Now, while that is easy, it is not as effective as taking a few minutes to personalize that message and telling some of your own experience, giving some of your insight and expertise, not just in a generic way, but speaking very specifically about any experiences you've had, the people in your business, the number of constituents you employ, hint, hint. All of that can be much more effective and only takes a moment. Even if they would like you to place a phone call, we'll provide the phone number. They would provide a legislative script or phone script. You really just have to leave a quick message.
Chrissy, anything to add to that?
Yes, I think what Adam said is exactly what I'm thinking. And so when Vince or myself, just to give an idea, or other members of the RIA team contact policymakers in a specific state or district, we can speak with greater credibility and specificity about the member RIA companies, employees, voters, representatives in that policymaker's district or state. And then on top of it, having those members, voters, etc., reaching out, it's the building blocks. There's so much that they care about us doing, but having the actual members reach out to, and it doesn't take time, and we are here to assist in that. We can send, emails. We can provide scripts if they're unsure what to do or what to say. We're here to assist with that. And so I absolutely agree. This is a grassroots effort, and we want the companies to step up because it's so important that the legislators hear from them because they're the voters in the district.
Talk about this. What are some of the biggest state level issues restorers should be paying attention to right now, especially those that could directly impact their businesses and profitability?
This is a loaded question for me because there's a lot, but right now the biggest state level issue is emergency restoration services providers should be paying attention to licensing and regulation. Restoration right now isn't recognized as its own trade. Many states are trying to determine where restoration fits, how it should be regulated, which can cause a lot of issues because they're trying to cookie cutter, like sticking a square into a triangle because they have existing contractor or construction rules that apply, and then they're trying to put the restoration industry inside those, and it doesn't work. This is one of the biggest issues. Another issue that I think is important is beyond licensing, the RIA members should also be watching insurance. And this is a big issue right now that I am seeing personally with my business and in speaking with a lot of other restoration contractors. But the RIA members should be watching insurance claims and payment related legislation. Several states are considering or have already passed laws and regulations regarding this. Several states which we just lost Louisiana not that long ago, and we fought hard. We had grassroots efforts here, calling, emailing, etc. And that there was some redistricting issues there at the exact same time, which I think also caused an issue. But several states that have passed or are considering passing, it's not just the assignment of benefits. We get that thrown around a lot involving contractors, but it's also the claims process, whether or not we can be involved at all. UPPA gets thrown around a lot in their payment rights, consumer disclosures, and interactions with insurers. And I would like Adam to, when I'm done, to add on to that, especially with emergency services. These changes, it can influence how we get paid, how we operate, how we pay our employees, and how, whether or not we can even survive as a business. Consumer protection is another big issue that we're seeing, and solicitation laws are evolving, especially with major weather events. That's huge. That's been on the desk for a long time. The laws are generally well intended, but they're just and designed to protect property owners from bad actors, but written too broadly, they can unintentionally create challenges for legitimate emergency services. For example, with water remediation, if a contract permits us to start, in 3 to 5 days, that can now turn into a mold issue. And that causes an issue. Fire and biohazard. That can also cause an issue when you need to make sure that the property is secure and you can't get a board up company to come out because they have to wait 3 to 5 days. Well, all of the personal property could, we can't take it out. Nobody can sign a contract. Nobody can do anything for 3 to 5 days. And I don't see how that's protecting the consumer at all. So I think right now, state legislation that may appear like on the surface to cause a good impact, the real impact is on emergency services, restoration services. How, again, I'm hitting home how we operate, how we get paid, and how the consumer is protected, because I don't see the consumer being protected in these types of Consumer Protection Act regulations.
So, Adam, Christie says she wants you to add on to that. Have fun.
Well, good luck to me. That was a very thorough answer. Uh, certainly, I see exactly what you're saying in the major priorities. The evolution of these right to cancel laws, as you mentioned, written primarily to protect people from bad actors, but written not well, written too broadly, written without important contextual knowledge. So if I may just be a little more specific with that, I'll say right now there's one in Iowa going on right now, Iowa SSB 1188. It's post-loss assignment of benefits and contract regulations that is covering exactly this. And if you are a restorer in Iowa, I would suggest maybe you look into SSB 1188. Also, with the issue of emergency restoration licensing, of course, that's a big one. Certainly one I have a fair bit of experience with, being from Louisiana. By the way, on behalf of Louisiana, I apologize for the recent trouble. I didn't do it. I'm sorry. But I'm very familiar with a lot of disaster recovery efforts. And I've been through my fair and probably messed up my back doing some of it.
And to add on to that, if we build the relationships with the lawmakers beforehand, rather than before the problem arises, it's the one of the best ways to protect. So it's, right now I feel like we're chasing it, but we're working on also reaching out to lawmakers and saying, hey, we exist. And if you decide to pass a law or a bill that's coming up, can you please contact us so we can have a seat at the table? And then and giving the restorers an opportunity to have a seat at the table before we're, trying to mitigate things. So there's both. There's us mitigating, fighting against, but there's also us going in and asking for a seat at the table to have people understand and to educate them. And that is really important to the grassroots efforts because I don't have experience in fire restoration. I need a fire restoration company with me. I need a water remediation company with me so that all of us jointly go, okay, these are the issues that we're seeing, and this is the possible issue, not just as us as the constituents, but also to the consumers who are also your constituents. And and the reality is a lot of people don't have the money to pay for the things that we do out of pocket and causing additional damage, with these types of regulatory issues is just going to cause a lot of hardship in the future.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Thank you for that. And Adam, I just have to ask this. Thinking about small business owners, they probably feel like no one's listening to them. What are some examples that prove that's not true? Do you have any of those?
Yeah, absolutely. So one example that I would think of off the top of my head is Trinity Health. Now they're one of the larger Catholic health systems in the country. However, that nowhere nearly as large as some of the public ones. Um, they had a local vote in Albany, New York, to raise the tobacco age to 21. Now, not surprisingly, the health organization was a little in favor of that. So they identified 30 legislators who were going to be voting just that following Monday afternoon. They sent a call to action, just an email asking folks in that particular area who worked at St. Peter's Health Partners, asking them to send a message on Monday morning. And every one of the Albany County Council members received about a dozen messages from those employees. Now, look, a dozen doesn't sound like a lot, right? This is a local county council. A dozen messages from employees on the same issue is huge. And that what had previously stagnated won by a wide margin because of that. I would also suggest, as a larger group, the Arthritis Foundation. They were working in Georgia on a step therapy reform bill in 2019, and they had a really interesting combination of how they were attacking this. Not only were they running an advocacy campaign with timely messages, they were always switching the targeting to contact like just members of this committee, then the House floor, just members of this other committee, now back to the Senate floor, then to the governor. They were all constituency based, so legislators were only hearing from their constituents who had the power of the vote. They were all, reaching out whenever the HB 63 got to a new stage, sending out reminders, but also they sent people to meet in person, as Christy mentioned, literally a seat at the table to talk it out. And with only 172 total messages, every last one of them was targeted, timely, personalized. They capped that off with about 6 personal conversations and absolutely got that passed by a landslide.
Good examples and all positive. So, Christy, you can comment on that, but it leads into my next question that fits this because some might say that advocacy takes time, money, political experience, maybe that companies don't have. But it sounds like it's somewhat simple if you put your mind to it. Talk about that, Christy. What can they do to make a difference?
Start small. That's what I would do. That's what I have done personally. Take 30 minutes next week, review the RIA's advocacy and government affairs website, see what information is there, understanding, like Adam said, what's going on in your area. It could be a local council person. It doesn't have to be, going straight to a senator. You can quickly learn that it doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be expensive at all to your business. And again, it's not political. It's engagement. And I think if you stay informed, just like we do within our industry, we have a duty to stay informed on how to complete a job correctly. It's the same thing. Stay informed about what's going on in the legislation in your district, in your tiny town. It doesn't matter how big it is, because as all of us have mentioned, there is a rollover. If one state copies another state, well, sometimes it starts small. And yes, we have big battles, but if you start small, you can lean on the RIA Legislative Committee, ask questions. There's a lot of information on the website. And but and then reach out to us, all of us that sit on the legislative committee, going, what can I do to help? And we are there for that. We can only do so much because we aren't the businesses. As the legislative committee, it's the businesses that will make the impact. We're here to empower them. I think that's really it. It's just taking basic steps, because if you change the mindset set of we're going against the government, that's not what this is about. It's protecting your business. And if you change that little mindset of I do all of these things to protect my business, if I do this, this will help protect my business even more.
Thank you, Christy. Adam, politicians, legislators, they probably get a lot of statistics and policy summaries. That's probably normal.
Oh,
Restoration contractors have stories, right, Christy?
Yes, very many.
Lots of stories. How do you use storytelling to make all this happen? Real world stories. How valuable is that to those casting those votes, making the policies, making change?
The most direct answer is 56% more valuable than a form message. So if I could give some background on that a little bit. Right now, I'm quoting the Congressional Management Foundation. Every year, or every few years, sorry, they survey every single staffer on the Hill. That's over 10,000 of them, about what is or is not effective, what are or are they not seeing. And always one of the more important categories of questions is, assuming we're not talking about a hard line, super partisan issue, how effective are various forms of advocacy? Honestly, that's one of the most important stats for any advocacy team, right? 55% of staffers say that if their legislator isn't 100% dead set on a particular side, that petitions and form letters will help move the needle. Now, keep in mind, this is talking about grassroots activity, right? We're talking about not just one message, but getting a number of them, everyone participating, right? However, if 55% say that those are effective, 90% of them say that adding a personal story is effective. That is a 56% increase in effectiveness. So
That's
y'all are not dealing with hardline moral issues, right? Past, people should be protected in times of need. Uh, so honestly, 9 out of 10 would say if you add a personal message, you are absolutely 100% going to be significantly more effective than just sending a form letter.
Yes, the RIA is well armed with all of that. So those watching this program, get out those stories and those examples and start sharing. So, Christy, we're about out of time, but let's wrap up with this question. As a contractor yourself, looking ahead, what kind of industry impact could happen if more restorers actively participate in advocacy efforts instead of just sitting on the sidelines and cheering on the rest?
I believe we can have a meaningful impact. We can help policymakers better understand what emergency restoration services provide, what we actually do, using the real life stories. I can only use my real life stories, but just as Adam pointed out, it's extremely important. And it's important for those stories to include why speed matters after a loss, and how certain laws or regulations can unintentionally harm property owners and legitimate restoration businesses. I also think that I wanted to mention this before, but it lawmakers don't understand what we do. And I can say as much as I want, but when you have somebody that actually comes in and gives a real life story about it affecting all of the constituents, including the consumer in that area, that could make a huge impact in advocacy efforts for the restoration industry. And we cannot sit on the sidelines. We are watching this move way too fast. We just cannot. Getting informed, getting involved, and making your voice heard. And the more RIA members and the stronger and more credible our message becomes, then it will flow through state to state. We will get invited to the seat. It starts with the grassroots efforts, and we are stronger together. We truly are.